very good special music. Just speaking about Pastor David Kennedy, like I said, wealth of wisdom. How I've heard about him, how I've seen him as well. Just in terms of his life, preaching, going around different places, it's been fantastic. So I'd encourage you, be attentive to the sermon. Just a quick background. So Pastor David Kennedy assisted in Waltham Forest congregation for about 4 years, and then he pioneered the Archway Church, which is now the Holloway Church, and then he went out to South Africa for about 12 years and started a wonderful work out there, which is still going, a great church that's out there in Bloemfontein. He came back into London and pioneered up in Wembley, I believe it was, for a number of years as well, and now he's around at the moment, so he's free and available. So we're going to have a good time this afternoon. Alright, so I really want us to give Pastor Dave Kennedy an Enfield welcome as he comes up. Let's give him a hand, church.
To go around our fellowship and see all the other fellowship churches and see what God is doing in all these different places. And you have a little oasis here. Just being in the service, you can feel the presence of God. And just great to be here. And I can sense God wants to do something in this place. If I can get my iPad to work, that is. I'm 60 years old. I know I don't look it. But I'm 60 years old. And, God has been very good to me. My parents were missionaries in India. I think I was born in India. I know I don't look Indian, I don't look Indian, but I was born in India. And, I resented being in a Christian home. I resented the fact that my parents were churchgoers, and my dad used to wear tweed jackets. My mum never looked fashionable, and I was always fashionable. You know, it's just like, why did God put me? I thought God put me in the wrong family. And I resented, the church background I had. And I was like the prodigal son. I went off and traveled around the world. And I did my own thing. And I got saved in Australia. And it was only after I got saved that I realised what a blessing it is to have Christian parents. And happy Mother's Day to all the mothers that are here today. I've got Christian parents. In fact, not only are my parents Christians, and my dad was a missionary in India, my mum and dad, but my grandparents on both sides were preachers. And then not only them, go back another generation, that's 3 generations of preachers, 4 generations of preachers, 5 generations of preachers in my family. So I've kept on the trajectory. And when my friends see me from school, it's like, no way, what are you? They can't believe, first of all, that they can't believe a lot of things about my life. So, God is a God of blessing. And this book is an incredibly insightful book. How many people want to be successful? Yes. I'm successful. Just look at the clothes I wear. I want to be successful. And some people think if I become a Christian, I want to be successful. All right? Well, that's a lie. You might not be successful in the world's eyes, but you'll be successful. God has made me a successful person, and I put a lot of that down to my parentage. And especially the most influential person in my life, I'd say, would be my mother. And so, being here on Mother's Day, there's nothing else I can preach about but mothers. And Ephesians 6 verse 2 is a scripture that we want to look at. This is mentioning one of the 10 Commandments, which is in Exodus in the Old Testament, but also in the New Testament. And it says, very simple, and I've got one scripture today, and then I want to talk about mothers and honouring, and us as, how many mothers have we got here in the house today? Got a few mothers in the house, amen. And so, just because you're not a mother doesn't mean you can switch off, because I'm talking to you who are not mothers as much as the mothers this morning. In fact, I'm talking to you more, because there's a commandment that God gives us, and it says, honour your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise. That it may be well, here's the promise, that it may be well with you, and you may live long on the earth. How many people want to be successful? All right, well, this commandment tells you how to be successful. By honouring your father and your mother. And the reason you will live long is because your parents will kill you. I've seen some parents, it's like, their kids are so bad, it's like, parents want to kill them. So, honour is a commandment. One of the 10 commandments. And it's interesting, it's the 6th commandment. The first 5 commandments have to do with how we should relate to God. And then the last 5 commandments are how we should relate to one another. And the most important of that, those next 5 commandments, how we should relate to each other. God says, honour your father and your mother. And it isn't just something nice, oh that's nice to honour your father and mother, because you're nice children, it's nice to be nice, but not everyone's nice. Yeah. I was listening to someone the other day, and they were shouting at someone, and when I heard the conversation, I said, who are you talking to? And she said, my mum. And I was horrified. Because, you know what, you shouldn't talk to your mum like that. Not just because I say that, it's because God says that. And we live in a generation that have got no respect and no regard for how they treat their mothers. Yeah. And that's wrong. Yeah. And you know what, it won't go well with you. That's what the Bible says. What Mother's Day is all about is taking time out to honour your mother. And how you treat your parents really does matter to God. It's not something God goes, oh, you know what, I understand, you know, mum's been a bit annoying, and so it doesn't matter, you can talk to her however you want to talk to her. No, God says, I'm very, very, very interested. In fact, the 6th commandment, the first commandment about how you treat other people, the parents, how you treat your parents, God is very interested in that, and it's the first commandment with promise, and He says, I promise you, if you treat your parents well, it will go well with you. That would indicate if you don't treat your parents well, it will shorten your life and it won't go well with you. So how many people realise we better treat our parents respectfully and well, and be careful how you open your mouth. The Bible gives very stern warnings that children who dishonour their parents by their lifestyle and by what they do and how they treat their parents will have bad consequences for them. I don't want bad consequences. And I feel so bad. One of my greatest regrets in life is how I looked at my parents. I remember, I got this little job at Victoria Station years ago, and I was still at home, and I was so embarrassed about my dad. My dad never wore jeans, never. I just wanted my dad to be fashionable. I just wanted my dad to be, he was just this nerdy looking person. He wasn't a nerd, but in my mind as this young, and so I saw him, I'm doing this job in Victoria Station, and I can't believe it. My dad's walking across the concourse, and I thought, oh my goodness, they're going to put two and two together. He's going to come and talk to me, and people are going to think I belong to him, and it's like, I'm so embarrassed. And so I literally turned my back, and I completely ignored him. I ignored the man. And he talked to me, and in the end he realised he gave up, and he turned around and he walked back over the concourse, and I saw my dad with his head down, walking away from me. I'm thinking, what a horrible git I was. What a horrible way for that. And I reckon if I carried on in that trajectory in life, I wouldn't be who I am today. But thankfully, I became a Christian. And I stopped seeing things the way the world sees things. And I started to see my parents for what they were, incredible parents, because they put God first in everything. And when they did that, my life completely turned around. I gave my life to Jesus. I started to honour my mother and father, and my life started taking a much better course. Bad consequences, you don't honour your mother and father. And the question I would ask every mother, are you the kind of daughter that you would like to raise? Or every father, are you the kind of son that you would like to raise? There's so much discourse with parents and children and arguments and fighting and infighting and not getting on and not talking to. How do you honour your mother? First of all, love your mother unconditionally. Well, I'll love you if you love me. That's how the world is these days, isn't it? When she's young and when she's old. Love her when she's young and love her when she's old. When she keeps on giving when she has something to give, and even also when she has nothing else to give. Sometimes people become depleted in life, and I've got nothing else to give you, so I don't love you anymore because you can't give anything, and we abandon our mothers and our fathers. Secondly, hug her affectionately. I'm not a hugger. Right? When Pastor Eric introduced me, sometimes the pastor's hugging. I don't do hugs. I definitely don't hug men. But I'm not even that good at hugging women. My wife, occasionally, she'll get hugged off me. My daughter, occasionally, but and my mum, there's a few people. I don't hug anybody else in my life. Nobody else. But you know what? Your mum. Give your mum a hug. There was an old sticker that people put on the car and it said, have you hugged your kid today? Maybe we should change that sticker. In fact, people don't really have bumper stickers anymore, do they? I'm showing my age a little bit. But, you know what? Have you hugged your mum today? It's Mother's Day. Why don't you just give her a hug? Not right now, but later on. When you go home, so just show some affection. It's amazing how we can take them for granted. That we take for granted, we think, well, I know my mum knows I love her. But you know what? It's funny. Have you told her? Have you displayed it in any way? Tell her you love her. Hug her at every chance you get, because you don't know how much time you have left. Wow. There's quite a few people and their mums are gone. Or someone they love has gone and they look back with regret saying, I wish I had. When I had the opportunity. If you had the opportunity, why don't you do it? We live in different times. When I grew up, there was certain things you would not say to your mum or your dad, and there's certain things you don't say. And I remember one day saying something very disrespectful to my mum when she got on my nerves. And when my dad got home, my dad got on my nerves, on the nerves of my backside. And it taught me a big lesson. You don't just say what's on your mind. And it boggles my mind how some kids talk to their parents. It might sound old-fashioned, but God looks and God hears every word you say to your parents. I've even seen some kids these days, and they lift their hand to their parents. It's like, you know what? My kids know. I've got 3 children: Jordan, Nicole, and Ben. That's my wife at back, Louise, by the way. And my 3 kids know you do not lift your voice or your hand to your mother, or even a finger towards her. They know that. Respect your mothers and hug them affectionately. Thirdly, understand her sympathetically. Women go through a lot. I've never been a woman. I'm married to a woman, I have a mum. and they go through a lot of changes. And they wear so many different hats in life. They cook, they clean, they judge, they make peace, they are referee, they are sounding boards, they are accountants, they are drivers, they're nurses. They do so much. And we need to appreciate the great job that mothers do for us every single day. They don't get a day off. They don't get a bank holiday from us. Treat her sympathetically. After she's done everything for you, you need to be sympathetic. You know, maybe she can't do what she used to do. And sometimes just what they do takes a lot out of them. They're exhausted, they're tired, they're stressed, they're coming under so much pressure. And especially as they get older, many people think, well, we'll just push them off to an old people's home. I promised I'd never do that to my mum. Well, they didn't put you in an orphanage when you couldn't look after yourself, did they? I said I'd never put my dad in an old people's home. Well, unfortunately, he got to the point where he had Alzheimer's and he forgot how to move his legs and he couldn't move. And my mum was about half his size. My dad was a tall man. My mum was a tiny little lady. She is still a tiny little lady. And I couldn't even carry him. He's in the car. He became very stubborn. He became very, willful. And I remember sitting in the car and he said, I'm going to the toilet. We're in the car park. I haven't got his Zimmer for him. And he said, I'm going to the toilet. And that's it. He opens the door. So I run around the other side, get a shopping trolley. I put the shopping trolley because he can't walk that far. And then the shopping trolley goes shit off, and here he is. He's almost like on an angle to the shopping trolley. I'm trying to push him back, and I get him into the shop. And he wants to go to the toilet. I can't take the shopping trolley into the toilet. I get behind him. I'm trying to help him into the toilet. I think, my I can't be here all the time. They live in Ghana. My mum can't handle this. He's going to have to go into an old people's home. So even though I didn't want to do it, that was the best place for him to be. But did you visit him? Do you go there on a daily basis? Do you spend as much time as you can with him? Because you know what happened after that? COVID hit. And I think one of the saddest things that happened was I couldn't go and visit my dad. You can't go in there and see them. It's like, they get old and to die a lonely death all by yourself is a horrible thing. Really take care of them and do the best that you can for them. They have mood swings, just like you have mood swings. And they can't be perfect. Mothers are not perfect. They can't be perfect all the time. And yet we're so judgmental. We're so quick to rise up and take this judgment on them and treat them a certain way. Listen to her attentively. In 2 Kings chapter 4, there's a story about the Shunammite woman who Elijah, he prayed for this woman to have a child, and she had a child, and it was just a blessing. It's a great story to read. But she gets this son, and one day the son's in the field working with the dad, and what a great picture of a family. And then he gets his headache, and he's screaming. He's going, my head. Obviously, there's something seriously wrong with him. And the husband says, take him to his mother. Isn't that interesting? When bad times come, when difficult times come, take him to his mother. His mum will know what to do with him. And if there's a problem, guess who we want to listen to us attentively? Mothers. I want my mum. I need my mum. I talked to Jordan and Nicole and Ben on the phone. Well, Ben lives with us, and so I talked to Jordan and Nikki. And I'm not a big talker. 15 minutes, that's the max you get out of me, if you get 15 minutes. But they talk to Louise, their wife, my wife, their mum, on the phone, and an hour goes past. What can you talk about? And the reason being is because she's so attentive. Mum's listening to all kinds of rubbish and all kinds of garbage. She's like, it's like they listen away. And the reason why is women are good listeners. Mums are good listeners. And in return, when they get older, you should honour your mother by listening to her. There's a quote that says, when you're old enough to know the answers, nobody is asking the questions. You get old and you get experienced. And you've got a lot of wisdom. But nobody's asking you the questions. Because we all think we know better, don't we? We all think, the older you get, the wiser you get. You've never raised a child, but your mum's raised, in my case, my mum, there's 5 of us. My mum raised 5 children. And you know what? She might know something about raising children. She's been married. My mum was married. My father passed last year. In 60-something years they've been married. I mean, you'd think she'd know something about men and marriage and managing a household. She knew a lot. She's a very wise woman. She knows so much. Listen to them. They know what they're talking about. And even if you don't agree with them, make them feel valuable. There's so many people, there's so many old people who feel redundant. No one wants to listen to them. No one cares about them. And what they have to say is important. Mum, what you have to say is very important. You're not, some old thing that doesn't relate anymore. You have more wisdom than most people have. Because the first time you ever cried, they listened to you very attentively. And they came and helped you. Help her cheerfully. Some young people there, some miserable. Do it cheerfully, not because you have to, not because you feel like it's... do it cheerfully, because mothers are the greatest helpers in the world. They do things that you can never pay people to do. Don't act like she's a bother. Some people, I watch some people, it's like, my mum's a bother. When she asks for help, it's a bother. She's not an inconvenience. She should never be an inconvenience to you. Love her unconditionally, even if she sounds really annoying. You can tell whether somebody wants to be around or not. Yeah. My mum phoned me up, and we should maybe delete this a bit out, but she phoned me up and she was around my brother's house, and she goes, my brother's wife does not want me to be here. Can I come to your house? No, my brother's wife never said that. She would have said, I don't want you here. But the way she behaves, she doesn't want you there. Can I come to your house? Because, Louise wants me there. And so would you want to be that person who goes, about? It's like, no, just make them feel wanted. It's so important. We live in a world which has so little community. We have to start rebuilding community and caring for these people who've cared so much for us. I'm amazed sometimes. Sometimes we're such sticklers for time, and don't be late for church and this sort of thing. Do you know the gymnastics a lady with a 2.5-year-old kid and a 3.5-year-old kid has to go to get them to come to church looking nice? The gymnastics they have to do, the things they have to do just to perform that act is a miracle. And then they come to go, I'm late. They do things that most men couldn't handle. I look at what I just heard those. I heard that from here. I'm attentive to that noise. It's like, they do so many things. I couldn't handle it. I go mad. So when they ask you for help, do it cheerfully. Don't make them feel like you're doing them a favour. They took care of you for years. And I'm preaching to myself this way. My mum's getting older. She's getting a little bit forgetful. She tells me the same story 3 times in one telephone conversation. But I don't let on to her. Yeah. Remember all their time gratefully, not just on Mother's Day. Little things mean a lot. I phone my mum almost every day. And when I was living in South Africa, it was every day. Because it meant so much to her. It doesn't cost anything. Skype doesn't cost anything. WhatsApp doesn't cost anything. But even if it cost me something, I would phone her every day. That means so much. I don't know how many times I said, David, thank you so much because you faithfully phone me every single day. It doesn't take much for me to do that, but I honour her. Because as I said at the beginning, she's probably the most influential person in my life. And so for me not to do that would be terrible. Include her in your life. Make her feel like somebody appreciates her. Mum, I appreciate you. Loves her. She gave the best years of your life to you. The best years of the life. Literally the best days. Remember how well she took care of you. A friendly gesture is a way to honour her. Remind her how much she is, how much she's needed. Sometimes you get old and you think, I'm just a something on the side. It's like, you don't need me. No, Mum, we need you still. The empty nest. You know, we used to live in communities that would have their parents come and live with them. We don't really live in those communities anymore. We pushed them off to care homes, we pushed them off to... And as I said to my dad, I said, I would never do that to him, but I couldn't do it. The empty nest, she's done all that work, and then you run off and enjoy your life. And the tragedy is, you forget about mum and dad. Yeah, and the enemy loves to take advantage and tell them you're no longer necessary. You're not. Imagine that you get to the end of your life and think, all my life I'm not necessary. Your life is over. You're just an inconvenience. You're inconvenient. I don't want my mum ever to feel that from me. You're an inconvenience. It's a tragedy when old people die alone. That's what happened to my dad. Fortunately, and this is the grace of God, just before my dad passed away, I decided to go up there and see him. It was my mum's birthday. And I saw my dad 1 week before he passed, and the smile on his face that we've come back, and he couldn't understand. He had Alzheimer's, couldn't understand where these people been for the last year and a half. My family haven't been able to visit me. We couldn't explain to him. We weren't allowed to, Dad. He couldn't operate a phone. He couldn't operate an iPad. And we tried all the things we could do. But you know what? The last week and the last days, my mum was beside him, and that brought so much joy to him. Don't leave old people to die alone. We're Christians. They can't work, remind them their need because they can pray. You know, one thing old people can do, and they never lose this ability, is they can pray. The value of a praying mother. Mothers. You know, maybe you feel like you can't do much. Your prayers are powerful. I'll touch on that in a minute. You know, call and ask them for that recipe. Can you give me that recipe? The older they get, the more we should contact them. But let them know that you love and honour God as well. You know, the best thing, as I said, is when I became a Christian, suddenly that respect and honour for my parents came back, but I didn't have that. In 1820, sometimes fact is stranger than fiction, and this is a true story. In 1820, Peter Richley got on a ship from England to Australia, and the ship that he was on sank, and everyone perished but Peter. His middle name was Lucky. The next day, another ship came along and noticed him in the water and rescued him. And that ship also encountered a storm and sank. 2 ships. But there happened to be a third ship, and Peter Ridgely was rescued by the third ship, and this third ship also sank. And the fourth, and the fifth, and the 6th ship sank on the way to Australia. I mean, travel isn't like it used to be in nowadays. Okay? It used to be perilous to travel all the way to Australia on a ship. Anyway, eventually he gets picked up on a 6th ship. It's called the City of Leeds. They pick him up and give him warm clothes. And he tells the captain this incredible story how he's been shipwrecked 5 times. And the captain came to him and said, listen, I'd like you to do me a favour. And he said, you know what, you saved my life, I'll do whatever you want me to do, I'll do whatever you want me to do. So there's a lady on this boat, and she too is going to Australia, and she's become the mother of the crew on this journey. She's become the mother of the crew, but she has a fever, and she is dying, she doesn't eat, she's burning up with fever, but she keeps on praying, oh God, let me see my son just one more time. He says she goes in and out of consciousness, but every time she's conscious, she prays and begs God to see her son. And so the captain said, would you mind pretending to be her son? Because she knows all the crew, and so you're on the ship, we rescue you from the sea. Would you mind pretending that you're her son? And he said, of course. And so they took them to this old lady, and when he saw her, when he saw her, he broke down because it was his mother. This is a true story. It was his mum who had decided to go and see her son one more time before she passed away. And I believe the reason 5 ships couldn't take him down in the storm was because you never underestimate the power of a praying mother. She was going to pray, my prayer is to see my son again. 5 storms tried to take him down, but God heard the prayer of a mother and connected these 2 on a ship on the way to Australia. You know, the power of a praying mother will get you through many storms of crisis in life. One of the best things if you're older and you're going to think, what can I do for my kids? My son himself, my youngest one is in Australia at the moment, and they've got storm warnings. And so, you know what, hey, listen, I can't go over there, I don't know what's happening. It's not that serious, I'm sure. But you know, what I do is pray. And so when I woke up this morning and I read the news, it's like storms in Brisbane, that's where he is, you know, I pray. And that's the best thing I can do. Yeah. And God will protect him. Pray for me, Mum. I remember a pastor coming up to me once, or he met my mum. My mum was an incredible prayer warrior. And this pastor came up to me and he met my mum and he said, Mrs. Kennedy, would you pray for me? And this guy was a little bit arrogant, a little bit, kind of, anyway, it was the way he was. And he had his foot on the chair and he was talking to my mum. I was disrespectful. He put his foot on my mum's chair. Disrespectful, it's like, but you're asking my mum to pray for you anyway. And she said, well, I'm sorry, but I won't. Because I've already got too many prayers to pray for. And so I won't say yes. You know, people say, yes, I'll pray for you. So, but I'm sorry, I can't commit to that because I've got too many other things. And I'll forget. So rather than say yes, no, I won't pray for you. So that's my mum. But she prays for me. Because her prayers get answered by God. Pray for me, Mum. Pray for my family, Mum. And when she can't do anything else, there's a power in a praying mum. Where would I be without my mum? God only knows. I remember when I first got saved, I got a job with a petrol company. And we used to fix petrol houses and petrol pumps. And so I've got this petrol pump in the workshop, and I've hooked it all up, and I've got all the wires hanging out, and I'm connecting up underneath. There's petrol on the floor. I connect this thing up, and it's like, hey, listen, nothing can touch me now. I'm a Christian. Nothing's going to harm me. And so there I am. I'm underneath this petrol pump, and I'm connecting up underneath. I'm connecting this bowser up to the fuel, and I stick my arm into the electrical wire, and then I earth myself on the petrol pump, and suddenly it's like, and I can see my life going before my eyes, and electricity is running from here, right across here. There's a little heart in the middle of that, you know, and coming out here. And I'm getting cooked by the electricity. There was no circuit breaker on the machine in the company, so I'm literally getting electrocuted. It's going right across my heart. Back in England, my mum woke up, and she started praying for me. I fell away from the machine. I drove myself to intensive care, into the hospital, but they found out what had happened. My arm was like a chicken arm. It's like a cooked piece of chicken. They put me into intensive care, and I came out of that perfectly right. You know, the only reason I survived that, I prayed in love. Yes. In England, in Australia, it's all the power of prayer. God is a powerful God, and praying mums are an incredible thing. Standing in front of the South African embassy in Trafalgar Square. I walked in there, we got stood up at a conference, David and Louise Kennedy going into South Africa, yay! And now I realise where everyone cheers because they're glad to see the back of us. And so we go to the South African embassy, and I walk in, and I've got all my paperwork, I've got my money to pay the fee, and they say to me, I'm sorry, we don't need passports for people like you, we don't need visas for people like you. I said, but my friend Pastor Abdul got my last check. I said, I'm sorry, I don't think you're listening to me. I'm not giving you a visa, get out. Security, shut them out. So I got thrown out by the security. I thought, what have I done wrong? I'm going to go and help these people in South Africa. Yeah. And so I'm standing outside in Trafalgar Square, scratching my head. And I'm thinking, I don't know what to do. And my mum phoned me and said, I got a scripture from you, Dave. God gave me a scripture. I was praying for you this morning. And here's the scripture. We don't know what to do, but we fix our eyes upon you. Alright? The battle is the Lord's. Go back down tomorrow. Literally, I've literally just come out. My mum phones me. I hadn't called her. She phones me and said, this is what God gave me when I was praying for you. So I went back the next day. And I thought, well, you know, we're quite racist in South Africa, so I saw the black guy the first day, or maybe the white guy. So I sort of positioned myself in the queue. Got to the white guy. He goes, were you here yesterday? I said, yes. He says, what did my colleague say to you? He said, I said, don't worry about what he said. You know, he didn't know what he was on. He said, listen, we're not giving you a visa. Get lost. Chuck me out second day. No. From God, through my mum. And it says, go back down tomorrow. So I thought, I know what I'm going to say to my wife. Hey. didn't get much better because she went there and said, did your husband come yesterday? And she said, yes. He said, what did they say to him? He said, well, you know, whatever. And so they kicked Louise out. But I had a word from God through my mum, which should go back down tomorrow. It's starting to get a bit embarrassing now. So the guy calls me out of the queue and he says to me, what do you think you're doing? He said, I've told you, you told your wife. It's like, listen, it's not your decision. The man upstairs makes his decisions. Take my money, stop messing around, take my application and process it. I'm telling you. 2 days later we got the phone call, Mr. Kennedy, your visas have been approved. Wow. Even before I was born, even before Louise was born, even before Louise was born, my mum was praying for my future wife. You know how badly I could have messed that one up? I almost married the wrong woman, almost, and she was in church, and it was like, I went back to Australia years later and met this woman and I thought, oh my goodness, I nearly made a huge mistake and married the wrong woman. But you know what, because of my mum's prayers, before Louise was born, when I was first born, from the first day I was born, my mum was praying for my future wife. I couldn't have made a mistake because I had a praying mum. Guys, we need to pray for our kids. There's nothing else. Sometimes they leave home and we are so scared. The world out there is scary. The things they can get involved in are scary. Yeah. And there's nothing, you can't go everywhere with them. They'll call you a stalker. Yeah. Right? You can't be everywhere. You can put that tracker thing on their phones. It doesn't matter. They'll find a way to switch it off, or they'll leave the phone somewhere else. Or you can't do it, but there's one way you can track them. And that's through prayer. Yeah. You can lift them up before prayer. Not a chance of my life going bad because I have a praying mum. There's no accident in the world where half of the marriages end in divorce, and that's true also in Christianity as well. Just because you're Christian doesn't mean. But you know what? None of my family, I've got 5 brothers and sisters, none of us have got a divorce in our family. Not one of them. And I attribute that to praying parents. And also a living example to follow. When I went on my travels, the prayer angels, I was a naughty boy. I was the prodigal son. I did all sorts of madness. And at 24 years old, I decided to retire. I earned quite a bit of money, and so I went traveling around the world, and I never was going to come back to England. And I got into some scrapes. I got into some trouble. I got into some madness. I got held hostage for 10 days. That's a whole different story. I used to go into a bar, find the biggest bloke, walk up to him and say, what's brown and hollers? And he'd go, I don't know, mate. And I grab hold of his nipple and twist it until he hollered, that is. And I'd turn around and walk out, and these people wanted to kill me. And there was one time where an Australian soldier stepped in and got involved and took the beating for me, and it's like, God just protected me, surrounded me, covered me. Because when I went on my travels, my mum was scared stiff. But God gave my dad a dream that I was going to get saved in Australia. And when I went traveling, the prayer angels went before me. I met them. I met the prayer angels. Not actually met them, but they jumped in to stop me getting an absolute bullying. And when I got saved, the first person I had the phone was my mum. And people in the church must have thought I was mad. I said, give me $2. This is when you didn't have cell phones. Give me $2, give me $2. And I went around the church, taking money off everyone in the church because I would go to the payphone and phone my mum and tell her, Mum, I got saved. First person I had to tell was my mum. Mums are so important. They make such a difference. And so if you're a mum here today, you know what? You can make all the difference in your children's lives. Guys, you're not a mum. People are not mum. You honour your mum. Because it'll go well with you. And you'll be blessed. It's such an important thing. It's like, Pastor, this wasn't a very spiritual sermon this morning. Oh, yes, it was. It was the 6th commandment. It was honour your mother and father. Yeah. And it will go, it's the first commandment with promise. It will go well with you. Is it well with you? Maybe it's not well because of the way you're carrying on. And you know what? You have no opportunity this morning to change. Because every time we come to church, we have an opportunity to hear something, to be convicted, and to change the way we live, that it might go well. Is it well with your son? Is it well with your parents? Maybe we need to start changing something. Let's bow our heads and carry space and respect the Lord. And I believe I wasn't a Christian for the first 26 years of my life. I refused. I mocked them at church. I used to kiss the girls, beat up the boys, drink the communion wine, and hated church. Despised it. Despised the fact my parents were Christians and went to church. Couldn't see the point of it until I got away on my own one day, and my mum's prayers were following me around, and the angel was following me, and God was speaking to me. And I remember the day I made a decision, what this life is all about, is about knowing God. And I came to that conclusion by myself. I thought, what if I was born into a Muslim home? Would that have meant I should become a Muslim? What if I was born into a Hindu home? Does that mean I should be a Hindu? And just because I was born into a Christian home, that didn't mean I should just become a Christian. But as I started to travel the world and start to explore, and I went to all these Hare Krishna things, and I went to all these different religions, and I got involved in astral travel, and I got involved in all this weird mystical stuff, and I had crystal power and healing through crystals, and I got in all this, and it's like, at the end of it, it's like, this is not God. This is man's way to try and fill that empty void which is in my heart. And one day I came to the conclusion that there is a God. And I need to give my life to him. And I surrendered my life. And from that day forward, everything changed. My relationship with my parents, my respect for my parents, everything changed. Everything made sense. Because without God, life doesn't make sense. What is the point that you live and die and then there's nothing after that? That just doesn't make sense. What's the point of being good if there is no reward of heaven, and with heaven goes hell? It's like, what is the point? And I remember thinking one day when I was threatened with my life and I nearly died. I thought, if I had died, would I have gone to heaven? And I know I wouldn't have, because I know the life I was living was wrong, according to God's commandments. I thought, well, God, tell me what heaven is. And God showed me the scripture. My mum and dad gave me a little Bible, and it said, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind can conceive the things that God has for those that love him. I thought, wow. It's like lying back on the beaches in Australia thinking about the best thing I've ever seen. I've travelled, I've been to all the 7 wonders of the world, I've seen all those things, but there's nothing better than what you've seen. So heaven is better than anything you can imagine, everything you've seen. No ear has heard, and I thought, well, as you're travelling, you meet people that have been to this place, they've been to places you haven't been to, and they tell you about these places, and they say, but it's better than anything you've ever heard about. And then no mind can even conceive. If you ask Steven Spielberg to make a movie and call it Heaven, and whatever he comes with, whatever he comes up with, the trickery of Hollywood, whatever he comes up with, it's not as good as heaven's going to be. I thought, there's a chance I could have gone to hell. Is there a heaven? Is there hell? And I asked God again. I said, well, what is hell? And I just picked up this little book that my dad gave me called the Bible, and I just picked up and opened it up, and it came to scriptures. You become like the God you serve. I wasn't a Bible scholar. I was asked God a question. I opened the book, and this was the answer I got. You become like the God you serve. You have eyes but you can't see. You have a mouth but you can't speak. You have ears but you can't hear. You have hands but you can't feel. And you have feet but you can't walk. And I thought, that's solitary confinement, that's isolation, that's living forever and ever and ever, all alone, and you cry out and your mum doesn't hear you. And you can't hear, and you live in this isolation forever and forever and forever with the regret of you could have changed all this, you could have gone to heaven. But you haven't. You're separated from man and you're separated from God, and you live in this cocoon forever and forever and forever. And I thought, I don't want that. So God, I want to know you. And I remember praying that prayer. And God took me on a journey, and he passed me by so many Potter's House Christian churches, and they witnessed to me. And I came to the point where I gave my life to Jesus, and it's the best thing I've ever done. You're here this morning. Maybe you don't know God. He is real. He's not just there to give you some rules to spoil your life and to spoil your fun. You know, I am blessed. I've got a great wife. I've got 3 children that come to church and have great kids. I'm so blessed. I've got a good job. I earn good money. I've got a house. I've got more cars. It's like, if you count by the world, I'm blessed. But I've got peace in my heart. I've got joy in my life. Things you can't purchase. I have these things. Why am I blessed? Because I made a decision one day, I'm going to give my life to Jesus. I was successful. I retired at 24 years. I retired. I'm far more successful today than I was then. And I put all of that down to making a decision to follow Jesus in my life. Maybe you're here this morning and you've never made that decision. I want to ask you, I want to give you an opportunity this morning to make a decision. Oh God, I want you to come into my life and I want you to be my Lord and Savior. I'm not interested about religiousness. I am not religious in any way, shape, or in fact I hate religion because religion causes wars, it causes division, it causes so many problems. I'm not religious. I have a relationship with God. And He leads me, and He guides me, and He directs me, and He helps me to be successful in life. To know Him is life. That's what the Bible says. To know God is life. And there's so many people, you follow the world, and the world, it gives you certain amounts of success, whatever, but deep down you have that longing, and deep down you have that thirst, and you'll never quench that thirst until you meet Jesus. And you're here this morning, you can know Him today. Or what separates you from God? Sin. And we're all sinners. There's not one of us here that doesn't sin, hasn't sinned. And if you confess your sin before God, God is faithful to forgive you. And that's all it takes. That's why Jesus died on the cross to pay the price for your sins. You're here this morning and you'd like to give your life to Jesus. Would you lift your hand up and just say, Lord, I'm going to give that a go. That's what I prayed. In a church in Australia, Darwin, Australia, thousands of miles away from where my parents were. I gave my life to Jesus. And it's the best decision I've ever made, was to give my life to Him. You're here this morning. Unless a man is born again, he cannot enter the kingdom of God. I was born with 5 senses: my sight, my hearing, my smell, my taste, my touch. I experienced this world with my 5 senses. I was born of flesh. But to be born again is born of the Spirit. And so I experienced life. You can experience life with those 5 senses, but you can't be born again without being born of the Spirit. And your spirit becomes alive. That's what it means to be born again. And you're not born again this morning. You're not born of the Spirit. You're not born into a relationship with Christ. The only way to get born to that is to want it, to ask for it, and to receive it. And that's done through Jesus dying on the cross. His blood paid the price for our sins. And if you confess your sins, God is faithful to forgive you and come in your life and transform it and to change it. And you're here this morning, you've never done that, you're not born again, but you'd like to be this morning. Would you lift your hand and say, Pastor, that's me? Every head's down, every eyes closed this morning. Lift it up this morning and say, that's me. I don't know Jesus. I'm not born again. That's the only thing that's going to matter when you stand before God. Do you know me? One of the scariest things scares the life out of me is I stand before God and He goes, sorry, I don't know you. Depart from me. And I have to walk away from God and go to hell. That's scary. I don't know you. So there's people I've known in life. I don't know them anymore because I don't communicate with them anymore. I don't spend time with them. And that's called backsliding. You once knew Christ, but you don't spend any time with Him. You've moved away from Him. Yeah, you've known Him, but you don't know Him now. You're out of relationship. I didn't recommend. I remember you from here, but I'm not friends with you. I don't know you anymore. You've moved away. You moved away from God. He didn't move from you. You've moved away from God. You don't spend any time with Him anymore. And if you stood before Him, you'd have to say, sorry, I don't know you anymore. I used to know you, but I don't know you anymore. Depart from me, you worker of iniquity. That's a scary place to be. And if you look at the world around us right now, this world is very soon coming to an end. The signs, read the Bible, the signs are all there. This is not a time to be playing with your relationship with God. This is the time to get it right with God. And we have an opportunity this morning to make it right with God. You're here this morning, you're in this place. You're not right with God, you're not born again, but you're backslidden. And you'd like to come back in this morning, lift your hand. The upraised hand is a sign of surrender. God, I'm surrendering my life back to you. Lift it up this morning. Lift it up. Anyone to front, back, left to right. Anyone to lift your hand. I remember the mental anguish that I went through to make that simple step. But no, there's so many things went through my mind. I'm going to give you one more opportunity. The difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is they take opportunities when they come. You know, I look back and I remember being offered 3 doctors' cottages in Docklands for £30,000 each, £90,000. They're worth millions today. And I missed the opportunity. Oh, what could have been? What could have been if I'd taken the opportunity? £30,000 each. It was offered to me, but I missed the opportunity. You know what's been offered to you this morning or this afternoon is far more than worldly riches. It is eternity with God in heaven. And successful people, when they see an opportunity, they take the opportunity. You're here this morning. God's dealing with you. Would you lift your hands and ask, that's me? I once knew you, but I've turned away from you. I want to repent of that this morning. Anyone to the front, back, left to right. And I want to turn to Christians this morning. And I hope that's everybody here this morning. I don't want to be judgmental and look at you and you're not, you're this, whatever. Okay, that's between you and God. But I want to turn to Christians. And the message that was preached this morning was honour your mother this Mother's Day. You know, some of the things I talked about, I can't go over the whole sermon, but maybe you're not doing that. Maybe you need to repent this morning. And church is a time, the altar is a time where we altar. When we come to the altar and we say, okay, I'm going to change. I've been like this. I repent of you. Like, maybe you need to say to me, Mum, I'm sorry for the way I've been treating you. Mum, I'm sorry for just ignoring you. Mum, I'm sorry for whatever. And they say, but I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to change. So we want to open up these altars this morning to come and make a place to pray and make some promises before God. And maybe you have to back those promises up with some words to Mum this morning, or maybe words to your children this morning. Haven't been praying for you, whatever it is. These altars are open this morning. Why don't we come and find a place to pray?